Usman called himself the GOAT of right now, pound for pound. So here's my question. Is he right? Is Usman right? Hard to say he's not. I don't know who I would put in front of him. And don't forget, he's coming off a win over a great fighter by knockout. So when you're talking about the all-around greatest, that's very helpful because that's not how Usman wins fights. Usman takes people down. Usman mauls people. He controls people. He won the world championship over Tyron Woodley exactly the way I just described. So if you're going to be the greatest of anybody, you got to be able to do a little bit of everything. And by the way, he just did. If I didn't say Usman was the best, who would I say? I'll tell you who doesn't get enough looks is Volkanovski. Volkanovski is very well-rounded. He has no one area of expertise. He's not the masterful wrestler, jiu-jitsu guy, or kickboxer. He's very everything. Everything is equal. Volkanovski needs to be looked at. I don't think he gets looked at. I think that if you were to look at heavyweight Francis Ngannou is a lot better than I knew he was. I knew he's been very effective. No, he's been very effective, but he's also very big. He comes into every fight with a meaningful advantage. Turns out he's also very good. I just learned this a week ago, guys. There's a video, if you want to know what I'm talking about, that was going around social media, and it was of Francis in a sparring session with Ciryl Gane. And those two used to work out together, I guess it was reported, but they refound each other in Las Vegas. They had a sparring session, and I mean, Francis was just capable of things I didn't know he was capable of. By example, in the sparring session, they're sparring, they're moving around is all. But like Francis hit a spinning wheel kick to the head, just for example, for a man who weighs 280 pounds to be able to hit a spinning wheel kick to the head, spinning and twisting around on his little toes of the 1 foot that are still left on the mat. I mean, it was very impressive. It was just stuff I didn't know he could do. I thought he was just a big brute. He'll walk you down. Doesn't really matter if you hurt him. It's not going to hurt as much because he's so massive. He hits you one time. We all know the power, but I thought that was the Francis story. I learned a lot in this little 12-second clip of watching some of the athletic skills, some of the aerobatics, if you will, just in this, as he was moving around with Ciryl. I think that you might have a different opinion. I don't know that we can throw Jones in there. Jones is not licensed right now. I think you'd have to give a good look to Dustin Poirier, right? Because Khabib's gone. And I do think you probably would come right down to Usman. Adesanya would have to be considered, but Adesanya, if you're just talking about overall skills, wins fights one way. Usman, on what he just did 48 hours ago, he wins fights two ways. I think Usman's the best fighter. I think he's right. I think he's right about that. And you'll always see the dominance of Amanda. You will see the dominance of the Bullet. But are they as good move for move and skill for skill? And that's probably what the conversation comes down to. You're going to have a hard time debating and deciphering who's better between Amanda and the Bullet. Even with their two matches both favoring Amanda, you're going to have a hard time. If you watch those matches, you probably came to the conclusion it should be one apiece to start with. And the other side of it is the Bullet is so much smaller. So how do you factor that in? And I'm not looking for an answer. I'm more just trying to start a conversation. And before you get into it, show you it's going to be hard. You're going to have a hard time. You're going to have to argue a lot of different integers. And I'll tell you who's a very good fighter all around. Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor is a very well-rounded, all-around fighter. And Conor has now called out Usman. Conor came after Usman saying that Usman is gimmick infringement. He's ripping off Conor's outfits and he's ripping off Conor's fighting style. I don't know where Conor gets the rights to a straight right hand. I don't know, but this is the argument that Conor made. He said, I'm coming up to 170. I'm going to take that belt away. You got to slow the young man down, right? He's coming off a loss. He can't get a title fight within his own division. He's not going to go get a title fight in some other division, but he's the only guy I heard call Kamaru out. I mean, not for nothing, Conor McGregor is the only guy that I've heard call Usman out. And I think that's because, by the way, I think that's because some of the 70-pounders are busy, but I also think they've all stepped aside and they understand this is Colby's fight. It's a rare thing when that happens, but it's a very cool, and there are times where that happens. It just happened with Ngannou. Ngannou got that fight with Stipe, but every other heavyweight stepped aside and said, yes, yes. Mr. Francis, please come right this way, and we'll all be over here until this gets done. And I think that's what's happened at 170. But I think if you were to listen to what I'm saying, of course Colby gets the shot. He's the only one who's asking for it. Who's going to get the shot after Colby? Well, it sounds like McGregor's the only one asking for it. Those things are going to change. Leon's got this fight with Nate, whatever comes out of there. Nate Diaz getting ready to jump the whole pack with one win. And you do end up in a spot of, well, what do you do with Masvidal? All right? And in many ways, it's obvious what you're going to do with Usman. You're going to main event the son of a bitch, and it's going to be for a world title because he's a main eventer and he's bringing the belt. In many ways, you've got half of that figured out. Who's he going to be opposite? It's all we have to come up with. What do you do with Usman? I apologize, Masvidal. And I really think you need to look at the Leon and Nate Diaz fight. The winner of that fight is likely to go in and face the winner of Usman Covington. But the loser of that fight is very likely to be next for Masvidal. And you come into a question of where do you stick Masvidal? Masvidal's a pay-per-view fighter, but he's also a main event fighter. And on pay-per-views, the main event is a championship match. I mean, do you see where this starts to get interesting? See where Sean Shelby's job isn't all that easy? I think that you're going to figure out Masvidal's the biggest star in the sport. I understand the argument for Conor. I understand that. But you understand my point. He's massive. He's a main event guy. He's a pay-per-view guy, but he now can't be main event of a pay-per-view. So do we stick Masvidal in a co-main spot? Maybe. Maybe. I mean, that juicy picking up a card anywhere in the world, maybe. Do you get Masvidal into a 5-round fight, but it's on free TV? Maybe. I don't think so. Maybe. Or does Chael finally get his way? And the BMF belt gets recognized. Masvidal's the BMF champion, and that can upset you as much as you want. That title has not been up for grabs. It has to be contractually stated. It's just the way that it works. It hasn't been yet. So I believe Mr. Main Event can still be in a main event of a pay-per-view, and I believe it could be a title fight, the one that he has.